Good morning, and welcome to Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm your service associate today, Scott Yeomans. My pronouns are he and him. I'm joined today by our interim minister, the Reverend Dr. Barbara Queeman. Today's music is provided by Julie Morris and Amy Austin. Today's tech team is Deborah Mensch, Paula Zimmerman, and Kathy Partridge on Zoom. Now, I invite you to breathe deeply. Open your hearts to these words of welcome and consider how truly seeing and accepting each person in their fullness might transform our community and our world. You are all welcome here today. In the rich tapestry of languages, cultures, and hues, with your unique gifts and challenges, you are welcome here. In the sacred ways of who and how you love, and with all your expressions of gender and identity, you are welcome here. In all the ways you serve the world, and in all the traditions that inform your spiritual or internal lives, you are welcome here. Whether you are returning after an absence or joining us for the first time, whether you want support today or came here looking or have the capacity to support others, you are welcome here. You are invited to join us with a curious mind, loving heart, willing hands, as we journey into truthiness and atonement today. We commit ourselves to being a center for spiritual exploration and justice-making, and to anti-racism and anti-oppression work within and beyond these walls. If you are new here, I'm glad you found us. And I hope that in this community, whether you're here in person or virtually, you can experience the warmth and love that we often find here. Everyone on Zoom is welcome to stay for casual conversation after the service. And if you're here in person today, you are welcome to coffee hour in Fellowship Hall. If you're joining us on Zoom, feel free to greet each other in the Zoom chat. And if you're a newcomer, do let us know so we can greet you. We love to know who is among us. And before I release you all to greet one another, I do want to let you know that every service here is a little different. Do come back a few times to get to know us. Those on Zoom can check out the links in the chat to learn more about us. And if you're here in person, do stop by the welcome desk to learn more as well. If you'd like to view a simple order of service, you can scan the QR code on screen now or click the link in the chat. Now, for those of you in the sanctuary, please take a moment to greet your neighbor.
A good springtime morning to everyone. I'm Reverend Barbara, the grateful minister of this congregation. My pronouns are she and her. In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, when we come together, we light our flaming chalice. I invite you now in the sanctuary, perhaps at home if you have your own chalice, to repeat together the words of the chalice lighting as Scott lights the chalice. We light this chalice
for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action.
Every day, I see or hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in the haystack of light. It was what I was born for, to look, to listen, to lose myself in this soft world, to instruct myself over and over in joy and acclamation and trust. I say to myself, how can we help but grow wise with such teachings as these? The untrimmable light of the world, the ocean's shine, the prayers that are made out of grass. Come, let us celebrate the delight of being here together this morning. Come, let us be in this worship service together and be glad. Welcome to morning worship. Oh, we want to sing now, don't we? Sorry about that. I was so delighted I forgot to sing. So our opening hymn, you've already heard the tune for, Morning Has Broken. In the gray hymnal, it's number 31 if you wish to follow.
It's actually 38.
Is it 38?
Yes.
Is that a typo?
Yeah.
38 in the gray hymnal. Boy, I'm full of corrections this morning, huh? The words will be on the screen. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit here in the sanctuary and at home and sing lustily.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them singing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden's song ray. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
Many of you may know Stephen Colbert, host of the late night talk show, The Late Show. Familiar to some of you? Yeah, applause even. But some of you may be unfamiliar with his satirical pundit personality of the Colbert Report, a program which debuted 20 years ago in 2005. In this show, he coined the term truthiness as the belief that something is true based on intuition or gut feeling, without regard to evidence, logic, reason, facts. So, I'd like to channel this persona a little bit for us this morning as he reflects on our UU values. Good morning, fellow truth seekers. I offer unfiltered wisdom straight from the gut, because that's where truth lies. Did you know you have more nerve endings in your gut than in your brain? You can look it up. Now, I know some of you are going to say that I did look it up, and that's not true. And that's because you looked it up in a book. Next time, look it up in your gut. I did. My gut tells me that's how our nervous system works. Now, let's talk about Unitarian Universalism, which I'm told is a religion that doesn't tell you what to believe. Now, that doesn't feel right to me. A religion without dogma? Where's the fun in that? My gut says religion should have lots of rules, lots of them, carved in stone, or at least written in a very stern font. Now, I'm told that UUUs are guided by values, and my gut tells me that these values are wrong and dangerous. Let's take a look. Interdependence, a supposed value that we're all connected on every level? Preposterous. Real Americans are islands unto themselves. I see some of you nodding. Islands unto themselves with really big boats and no trespassing signs. Remember, independence is what made America great, not some hippy-dippy web of existence. Then there's equity. Equity. Now that's just equality wearing some fancy hat. My gut says if God wanted fairness, he wouldn't have invented private jets and economy class. Some people were meant to have padded mahogany pews and others plastic folding chairs. That's just how God intended it. What about transformation? The idea that you can change yourself based on new information and experiences? That's just flip-flopping. My gut says that real religions cement your beliefs at age 8 and you never look back. How about one more? Pluralism. That's a made-up word. My gut says that if you need more than one truth, then your truth isn't truthy enough, right? Different beliefs under one roof, it's just like a spiritual potluck, and someone always brings theological ambrosia salad. And who wants that? So there you have it, folks. Some UU values according to my gut. But what do I know? I'm just a guy whose truthiness is unencumbered by facts, reflection, or spiritual growth, which might actually be what your minister is going to address in her sermon today. Well, I hope you had fun with some of those truths, truthy perspectives on our faith, despite how much truthiness still informs our national discourse. Our faith calls us to value pluralism and the free and responsible search for truth and meaning with grace and courage. And in the days ahead, may you be blessed with grace and courage.
Have the order of service. You picked it up. Thank you. My friends, this is the time in our service set aside for the personal, the sharing of joys and concerns, celebrations, and challenges, here in this room and online. This is a time for the personal, not for announcements, not for political endorsements, for what is going on in your life and in your soul. I invite you to come forward, speak into the mic, hold the mic directly in front of you. Please state your name so we all know who you are, or come forward and drop a stone in silence. After the joys and concerns in this room, then we'll invite any that are online. Please come forward for the sharing of the personal joys and concerns. And let us add one more stone for those unspoken joys and concerns that are among us. My friends, may we come together in some moments of collective prayer, meditation, and intentional focus, as we are called to trust the people who move towards us and help us feel at home. As we trust the people who let us rest. As we trust the people who revel in pleasure after hard work. As we trust the people who see and hold us in their hearts. As we trust the people so that we may become yet more trustworthy. As trustworthy listeners, then, Great Spirit, we hold in our hearts all these personal joys and concerns that we have heard this morning that have been articulated. We also now go more deeply, listening all the more closely to that still small voice in each of us, exploring those messages, those mysteries perhaps, of the soul. In that depth of spirit, then, let us be together for a few moments of silence, connected all the more deeply to those who are among us, as we are trustworthy with one another. Let us be together for a few moments of silence. Amen, and blessed be. Friends, you may continue your meditation or join in singing our pastoral hymn. In the hymnal, it's number 123. On the screen will be the words, "For Spirit of Life." Spirit of life, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the air, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, winds set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Amen, and blessed be. Many of you are aware that this is the stewardship period in this congregation. That is the time for intentional dedication of financial stewardship for the work and witness of this congregation. And each week we hear from members of our own congregation about their dedication to this congregation. Amy and Paul Austin, please come forward.
So hi, we are Amy and Paul Austin. We started attending BVUUF. Oh wait, that's your part. I'm kind of like that.
She's so organized. We started attending BVUUF at the end of 2016. She was here a little bit before me, and we are members of the first Trump bump, and quickly became connected to the life of the fellowship. What we didn't anticipate was that BVUUF would become an actual home to us.
It's become an actual home because we lost our home of 35 years in the Marshall Fire. It was burned to the ground. We were left with the clothes on our back, a box of pictures, and thankfully we had our dog and our daughter and her husband's dog because they were visiting for the holidays. And it was devastating.
The members of the BVUUF community immediately came to our aid. We received meals from this community every other day for almost 3 months. And oftentimes when people would bring casseroles, they would leave this beautiful casserole dish for us to have. The fellowship collected financial donations to help us and the 2 other BVUUF families who also lost their homes. During that time, we moved 7 times before moving into our rebuilt home, trying to make strange places feel like home. But the place that really felt like home was this building and the people in it. Our welcoming words say it all, and we have always felt welcome here. Beyond welcome, we feel embraced.
On this journey, we've also been going towards full retirement, and so our pledge is a little bit of a stretch for us, but BVUUF and the community here are so high on our priority list. We pledge because we want to be sure that this community continues to thrive and to be a place of welcome, safety, and respite and respect for everyone, no matter the situation. Because, thematically, Wizard of Oz, as Dorothy says, there's no place like home.
Each week, we remind ourselves of the abundance of our lives and of this community, as Paul and Amy just expressed beautifully, by giving half of our plate away to those organizations that share our values. Today, the half plate is for Together Colorado, a nonpartisan, multiracial, multi-faith community organization working to place human dignity at the center of public life in Colorado. The fellowship and many of our members have long been partners with Together Colorado, promoting our UU values of justice, equity, and more. You can text your donation to the number on screen, or if you're in the fellowship today, you may place a donation in the offering plate as it passes. Please give generously, as you so often do.
My friends, for the work and witness of this congregation and Together Colorado, your contributions are gratefully received. I have a reading. I don't want to say much more about it than that its title is Truth. Viewed in every aspect of human life, these are times that try men's souls. Upheavals and convulsions are going on in every department of society. Social changes are taking place. The religious mind of the mass is undergoing changes at which the founders tremble, and which they fear will uproot Christianity and scatter its name to the elements. But while society is carried on by the force of the commotion which these changes are causing, let us as individuals pause, not only to inquire whither it all is tending, but whether in looking upon the past records of human actions, it is not possible to perceive some general laws and movements which display the guiding power of truth, and an assurance in these of a guarantee in the future, and in a hope that order may eventually grow out of this seeming chaos. And more than this, let us strive to discover if there be not a native power in truth, viewed either as a whole or in any one of its many phases. Be ours the task to vindicate the power of truth, and attempt to show the weakness of error. So if you're wondering about this reading, it was written by Mrs. L.A. Lydia Jenkins in 1857. Part of me, many of you don't know about yet, is that I'm writing the biography of Lydia Jenkins. This is Women's History Month, and I couldn't let the month go by without bringing Lydia's voice into the services. Lydia, I'm claiming, was the first ordained woman, not only in Universalism, but in the country. And I'm trying to honor her memory and bring her to the forefront. So let us be inspired by the words of truth, which seem pretty much in 1857 like we're discerning today. So we welcome Lydia Ann Jenkins into the service. So in considering this reading by Lydia Jenkins, we're reminded of the ongoing relevance of essays and stories from the past. A novel which is now 25 years old, Atonement, published by Ian McEwan in 2001, is especially relevant today. Atonement reminds us about the nature and power of truth, and the powerful connections between truth and trust, trust being the theme for the month of March. So this story of atonement begins in 1935 in England, in an elegant country house of the Tallis family. The husband and the father, Jack, spends much time, many overnights, in the city working. The most notable feature of his wife, Emily, is constant migraines that confine her to bed. The two adult children are Leon, home for a visit, and Cecilia, living at home after recently completing studies. The third child is 13-year-old Bryony, a precocious, imaginative busybody whose less than mature observations of the world have life-changing consequences. Bryony, a budding playwright, is preparing a family production of her latest play for Leon's visit. The other central character is Robbie Turner, son of a family servant with no obvious father in the picture. Mr. Tallis has paid for Robbie's education to become a landscape architect, and he plans to finance Robbie's upcoming medical studies. Also visiting the country home are the 3 children of Emily's sister, 15-year-old Lola, and 9-year-old twins Jackson and Pierrot, while their parents are in the throes of divorce. The twins are 9-year-olds. They don't like the house, they don't want to be visiting, and they surely don't want to be in a play. Bryony has her nose in everything. She's a control freak. She takes bits and pieces of others' lives and joins them together to construct truth as a 13-year-old is able to. As the novel opens, from the top floor of the house, she watches Cecilia and Robbie in the distant garden collecting flowers. Their precious mice and vase to hold the flowers accidentally falls in a nearby pool. Cecilia flings off her dress and jumps into the pool to retrieve the vase. The truth Bryony sees is Cecilia unrobing in front of Robbie. Later that afternoon, Bryony just happens to be in the mansion's library where she finds Robbie and Cecilia stealing a kiss as they realize their emerging love for one another. Bryony thinks the worst of the tryst because earlier in the day, through her nosiness and annoying habit of jumping to conclusions without evidence, she concluded that Robbie was a maniac. During dinner that evening, the family is alarmed because the twins have disappeared. While everyone is searching in the dark, Lola is attacked on a wooded path. The scenario just gets more and more complicated. Bryony persuades Lola to falsely accuse Robbie the maniac. Lola willingly colludes in the deception. On their word, Robbie is arrested by the town constable. Bryony's construction of truth, as she understood it, had life-changing consequences. Jailed for months, Robbie gave up his plan to attend medical school. Later, he served as a soldier in World War II. Cecilia left her family, vowing never to return, and finally united with Robbie after he got out of jail, married him. Bryony became an army nurse, hoping that service to others would bring her atonement. So many hurtful consequences caused by developing and passing on misinformed perceptions of truth, which degraded the trust this family held for one another. You can guess. This was a family with many other secrets and misconstrued ideas of reality, which I haven't had time to tell you about. My friends, truth can become so easily distorted and misinterpreted as we humans engage in this challenging process of communication. In many ways, the reliability of communication has been made all the more challenging in our age of social media. Truth can be easily distorted. Sometimes we may hear only a snippet of a much larger context. And so we pass on to another listener what we pass on is incomplete or even incorrect. Perhaps we do not clearly hear the words of another person, but we repeat what we think that person said and create new truth. How we pass on information has much to do with how we build up trust in our relationships. As I proposed last week in our reflections on the monthly worship theme of trust, truth and trust are close allies. What we regard as truth may have life-changing consequences, as we heard in the atonement story. Think how that story might have turned out different had Bryony called on the circle of trust touchstone we discussed last week about turning to wonder in the face of uncertainty or incomplete information. But she didn't. Brian, he should have attended a Circles of Trust here, you see. Sadly, truth seems to be in short supply in so many areas of modern life and modern communications. These days, hardly a day goes by without some news about a public figure who deviated from truth-telling. And our trust then in those public figures erodes, doesn't it? The fire hose of their deviations from truth threatens the very core of our democracy. A while back, I had some hope that we'd turn some corners in truth-telling as a culture. As, for example, when the Me Too movement of 2017 brought home just how many persons seeking power have exerted that power through sexual misconduct and then denied the truth, the facts of that conduct. Alas, more recently, the manipulation of truth in the hands of powerful leaders these days, especially these past 2 months, has eroded trust in this resurgence of truth-telling that I was hopeful we had started to develop several years ago. The recent assault on truth through accusations of it being fake news is especially damaging. If someone doesn't like the contents of a news story, it's okay to dismiss it by claiming that the process of reporting the news is questionable, rather than evaluating the content of the information. Claiming fake news gives persons seeking power yet another means of dismissing the facts, as in reporting sexual misconduct. The more our culture evades truth, the more it feels like our foundation is caught in sinking sand, losing the capacity to recognize truth when we hear it and see it is alarming, to say the least. Claiming fake news is an example of the misapplication of truth, which the comedian Stephen Colbert identifies as truthiness. Mr. Colbert, I trust you would agree with me. Colbert made up that word. That plain old word truth is just too bland, he said, a term to convey a serious concept. Truthiness actually became the word of the year shortly after he introduced it. Little did he know how applicable truthiness would be to politics in 2025. What Colbert identified as truthiness, as we've heard from the person himself, is a feeling-based way of constructing truth. What is believable to any particular individual becomes truth in the mind of that individual, regardless of reality around them. For example, someone may have a negative experience or negative knowledge about one person of a particular nationality and conclude that all persons of that nationality are similar. So to justify building a wall between countries, for example. Sometimes called spin, truthiness involves changing the facts to achieve the position the spinner desires. The late John F. Kennedy would have disapproved of truthiness. He said, "The great enemy of truth is very often not the lie, but the myth. That is, the universal truth, which is often persistent, pervasive, and unrealistic." We're so bombarded with so much truthiness these days, my friends, constructed to denigrate anyone who does not measure up to the privileged, moneyed, white male paradigm exhibited by so many current political leaders. I'm not allowed to mention names from the pulpit. Truth is also an essential religious and theological subject. Virtually all religions define and examine truth, a complicated theological topic to which I can only offer a few brief thoughts. Contrasting with more absolute, factual rendering of truth, religious truth is often equated with belief, and thus much more viable in interpretation. For anyone who considers themselves religious, the pursuit of truth is integral to why we go to church. How we construct truth grounds how we construct systems of morality, how we build relationships, and how we make sense of our experiences in the world. The roots of truth and trust are related. What we regard as truth, we tend to trust. Here in this congregation, your current attention to creating an all-congregation covenant will shore up all the more your sense of truth and trust as you define common values as well as standards of accountability for those values as your covenant statement goes forward. Truth in some religious contexts is code for God, the ultimate source of existence, the source of truth. In some ways, defining truth is easier in more fundamentalist religious traditions because of their more absolute approach. Absolute truths define an absolute God. There's little room for alternative realities or interpretations. So, for example, abortion is wrong, absolutely. All persons from, you name the country, are, you name the quality, absolutely. In contrast, in a liberal approach to religious faith, there are many more options for how we evaluate truth. Truth is no less important to liberal faith. Recall that we have a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, one of the earlier 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism, and that were the core covenant. In contrast to fundamentalism's absolute view of truth, in the liberal way, truth for some may not be truth for others. In liberal religion, discerning the nature of truth invites personal exploration rather than dogmatic acceptance of common belief. For example, perhaps not for you, but a truth for me is the old Universalist belief that in the end, all will be well. I truly believe that. Truth in liberal style, it's constantly becoming, constantly unfolding. The distinction between fundamentalist and liberal truth is illustrated in a story told by UU theologian and the past president of Starr King School for the Ministry, the minister Rebecca Parker, one of my dear colleagues. As a young minister, Rebecca Parker was approached by a woman congregant abused by her husband for years. 20 years earlier, her priest had told the woman to endure the suffering because it put her closer to God. She accepted this as God's truth. But then one day, she asked Parker, was the priest telling the truth? Parker had to offer the woman her interpretation of truth, to say no, for her the priest was not telling the truth, because the God she knew did not wish for humans to suffer. The revelation changed the woman's life and truly changed Parker's course in ministry. Truth can be empowering, my friends, as that story illustrates. Or said more bluntly by the feminist Gloria Steinem, the truth will set you free, but first it may piss you off. That's why it's important to discern carefully what methods we use to construct truth, since truth is a signal of power. Our interpretations of truth can change lives, as we heard in Atonement. What is critical to affirm is that while we each have freedom to choose our own criteria for defining religious and spiritual truth, even in liberal religious and ethical systems, truth is not totally and completely relative. There are standards and absolutes. There are boundaries and guidelines. If we want to participate in any system of ethics, we can't just make up truth to satisfy our own need for power. The late Senator Patrick Moynihan said it well. He said, we may be entitled to our own set of opinions, but we are not entitled to our own set of facts. Or said more bluntly, just because we consider ourselves to be of liberal religious values, that does not give us unbridled freedom to be loose with the facts. We have a responsibility to verify the substance of information before we pass it on to others, to listen actively and place facts into as complete a context as we possibly can. We cannot construct truth from incomplete information. But I wonder how often we do this. Often out of good intentions, probably almost always out of good intentions. We hear bits and pieces of stories, or we experience another's actions, but only part of the whole story. And yet we declare our subjective conclusions as truth, when in fact they are at best impressions or opinions. A subjective method of constructing truth might be okay if we kept those conclusions to ourselves. Bryony might have believed Robbie was a maniac in our story and not caused any harm if she didn't tell anyone. But taking that action on her part based on unsubstantiated conclusions caused great harm to another human being. Now, why the Tallis family in that story accepted Bryony's testimony is unclear. But their responsibility for going along with the crowd in drawing conclusions about Robbie's guilt was not a valid means of defining truth, let alone justice. As this congregation looks ahead to starting the ministerial search process in late April, I invite everyone to stay informed about the truths. That is, the factual information about the nature of the steps in this search process, which are clearly defined by the Unitarian Universalist Association. Also, stay well informed about constructing your opinions and beliefs, which each member will be asked to offer when you are asked to give input about nominations for your fellow members to serve on the Ministerial Search Committee. Offer those opinions with as much substance of factual information as possible. I can't emphasize strongly enough the importance of each person in this community, no matter your particular roles will be when search starts, becoming and staying well informed as possible about the truths. That is, the current criteria and guidelines for UU ministry, as well as the needs of this congregation in 2025, as you move forward in new directions as a religious community. Have you ever found yourself in situations like the atonement story, experiencing the hurt of someone else drawing inaccurate conclusions about you? Have you ever had to atone for, or wished you could have atoned for, your role in inappropriate distorting of facts to represent truth, even if done with a spirit of best intentions? Being less than intentional with truth weakens trust. I hope that the values of free religion help us to understand that the search for spiritual truth is open-ended and flexible, while at the same time defined by borders and boundaries. Living in truth and trust may well lead to positive change and growth, empowerment and nurturing. My friends, may we all live intentionally in a truth and a trust which keeps us free. May all this be so. And as we conclude our service with singing, speaking of speaking in truth, let us turn to hymn number 34 in the gray hymnal or on the screen. Though we may speak with bravest fire, let us again sing lustily. Please rise in body or in spirit or in home, join in on singing.
To all inspire.
invite you to remain standing as we extinguish the chalice by sharing the words together. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, or the energy of action. My friends, as you wish, may want to reach out and touch the arm, the spirit, or the soul of the person near you and online and in this room. For those of you who have come here seeking God, may God go with you. For those of you who have come here seeking life, may life return your affection. For those of you who have come here seeking a better way, may that way be found and the courage to take it step by step. When you leave here this morning, my friends, go in peace. When you return to this sacred space, return in love and in hope and in truth and trust. Amen. Shalom. Salam. Namaste. And blessed be. And let us now bless the announcements.
Yes, I invite you to take your seats again as we welcome Treasurer Mary Hill to read today's announcements.
I was going to get you to come up. I couldn't figure out what to get her. Woohoo! I'm actually not the treasurer, but I am on the board. So I'm a trustee. I used to be the treasurer, but now someone else does a much better job. Okay. Are you after me or before me? Okay. Okay, the Inquirer series continues today on the topic of social justice involvement at the fellowship, including the topics of immigration, mental health, housing, queer-friendly congregations, and more. If you'd like to learn more, grab a cup of coffee in the fellowship hall after the service and come back here at 11:30. Newcomers and established members are welcome, and they will end by 12:15, so you'll get out of here. Okay, then join the Queer-Friendly Congregation Committee this Saturday, March 29th at 2 p.m. at Fellowship Hall for a free showing of the movie Pride. It's based on a true story about gay and lesbian activists uniting to support the British miners' strike of 1984. The movie is rated R, childcare will be provided, and all are welcome. Feel free to bring a snack and invite your friends. Contact Michaela Sievers for more information. I don't think Michaela's here this morning. Oh, she is. Anyway, good. Oh, she's in the kitchen. Okay. And
it seems fitting that the pledge team would have a spokesperson at least occasionally at these events. So that's my assignment, and as you can see, I am the Tin Man. And I want to say, one of the things the Tin Man, as you know, was searching for was a heart. And I heard a story from the Austins today that tells me this fellowship has a lot of heart. And I'll also add to that, we are at the halfway point of our pledge drive. We have roughly 70% of our goal achieved. So thank you to everyone here online. And I invite and encourage those of you who are holding back, where about half the pledge units have pledged, don't hold back. Let us see your heart to keep this thing going healthy so it can thrive. So thank you for all you're doing. Thank you to the stewards. Keep up the good work.
okay, and now it's time for our closing music. And thank you all for being here this morning.